So it's Taste on Dash. I'm Reggie Hawkins, and we have the honor and privilege of being with the co-founder of the Until Freedom Movement, the activist, Tamika Mallory. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing good. Thank you so very, very much for having me on today, Reggie.
First and foremost, let me just say, and I think I speak for a lot of people, I, as a black person, I really do appreciate what you've been doing and your organization been doing, as well as others, but you in particular, what you've been doing and how you put yourself on the front line for our people is admirable, it's honorable, and if nobody told you today, you're appreciated.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you as well. And, I'm just doing my part and trying to make sure that before my time is over, that I put in my work.
No.
Each one of us have to put in our work. So I'm just trying to put in mine.
Your work is going to live on way beyond you, and that's legendary.
Thank you.
Honestly, as a black person and as just somebody frustrated with a lot of things, what's different this time when it comes to, I want to talk about the totality, then we'll talk about this particular case, but what's different this time? Or, in all of the things that you've been involved with, what's different this time?
Well, I think that you can't ignore the impact of COVID-19, right? Mm-hmm. And how so many people have been at home on stay-at-home orders. You got 40 million Americans who are not working. And therefore, people have been a lot more attentive to the news. Even in looking at social media, you can see that folks are building businesses, new brands. So people are really online a lot. And I think that what happened is that folks watched 3 murders take place sort of right before your eyes. Even though Breonna Taylor's situation, there was no video, but it still had an impact when you put it between Ahmaud Arbery, which we watched him be shot to death in Georgia. And then you have George Floyd, which people at that point were already frustrated. I mean, I know for sure that Ahmaud Arbery really messed people up. I mean, It was a lot of folks that just couldn't believe it, to know that this guy was hunted by people who I think they felt like they were slave catchers, and to know that the local authorities were involved with it. And he was shot with a shotgun at close range in his stomach, in his hand, in his face. I think that was just a little bit, it was too much already. We saw those people who participated in the Run with Ahmaud campaign. And then you find out about what happened to Breonna Taylor, which is very emotional, especially as a Black woman, to know that she was shot and killed in her home, and that it happened in March. Now remember, Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor both happened February, March, right? And nothing was being done. So people are outraged at that point. And then you see George Floyd, his life literally be taken from him on camera. You have to watch a gruesome video, and then he's calling for his mother. And I think those things, coupled with what we have been through, anytime you're locked in your home, that causes its own mental stress and its own trauma. And then to have these 3 murders play out right there on your cell phone, I think it was just over the top. And the world, because everybody was shut down, not just Americans. This is a worldwide crisis of COVID-19. And I think people began to look and say, wait a minute, something is wrong here. And once these 3 murders took place, it gave us opportunity to tell the stories of so many others that some people didn't even know existed. They didn't even know these cases. And I think that is what made this time a lot different.
In total, because truthfully speaking, there's been a lot of administrations, Democratic and Republican, nobody's excused from this moment in time. What do we want as it pertains to systemic change? That's what, like we're New Yorkers. In Chinatown, there's the police department is reflective of the populace. In other areas, particularly in this city, the police department is reflective of the community. Why do you think that it's just so systemic for people outside of our communities to police our communities?
Well, I think that, and by the way, I don't necessarily subscribe to or ascribe, excuse me, to the
Mm-hmm.
theory that that people outside of our communities are worse to us. I've seen Black officers and brown officers do some of the very same, if not worse, things to their own people. I think it's a systematic problem, and I think when you ask the question, what has to happen? I'm all the way at the point, and a lot of people are not there with me. So most folks are still talking about reform, talking about, how we need to make changes. And of course, as we go along, we definitely need to have legislative changes. We need to have an overall, if you will, of the system, the laws that are in place, and ensure that new laws are passed to help protect us. But the ultimate goal has to be completely tearing down the current criminal justice system and recreating something else. In fact, you're getting the exclusive right now that Until Freedom is going to be on tour. And our tour is called We Need Something Different. Something different has to happen. The systems that are currently in place, they no longer work for the people. They definitely never work for Black people. They were never supposed to. In fact, they were designed as the complete opposite. And so I think we need an entire overhaul. We need new systems. And in our communities, particularly when we start talking about defunding police, and that scares people too. And I don't know why they're so scared, because they've been defunding us since we came to America. There's always been a defund of Black people, our education system, housing, healthcare. Every program as it relates to our community has been defunded. But in this particular moment, we talk about defunding police. It's not just about taking money away. It's about reallocating so that we can reimagine what it looks like to take care of our own community.
Is that what we have a problem with? Do we have a problem with the terminology defunding? Let me ask you, was it just wrong for us to use the terminology defund the police as opposed to reallocating resources to other areas?
No, well, I mean, you're talking to somebody who says all kinds of shit that people don't like. So
Understood.
I say defund police. I'm almost at abolish police. So we're in different places. I don't think that saying it nicely is the right way, is the point. The point is not what it's called. The issue is that right now, police officers have too much money for military equipment and to brutalize and terrorize our communities. And that needs to end. And we need to ensure that for someone like a Pamela Turner, who's a young woman who was killed in Houston, Texas, she was shot while laying on the ground by an officer whose life was not threatened. And she was shot in her stomach, in her chest, and in her face. But she was mentally challenged. And we believe that is the reason why she was targeted. When 911 is called, well, first of all, there needs to be some new mechanism for who you can call in the event that there is an issue. But when 911 was called, how about a system that allows someone who has mental health training to show up to help try to de-escalate a problem before an officer pulls out a weapon?
I guess what you're saying is, a lot of times you have unqualified people showing up to situations, and their only recourse or their training is to escalate a situation, as opposed to saying, you know what, this whole situation needs different type of help.
Yeah, well, they're trained because they don't do it when they go in other people's communities.
That's true.
And even in our own communities where white folks live, you never hear about them getting shot, mistaken identity. He pulled out a wallet and I thought it was a gun. He yelled at me. We never hear that. So they are trained. They're qualified. The issue is they don't have the compassion for our communities, and they haven't been held accountable. And so therefore, whenever there's no account, imagine if your parents, if they just let you run around and there's no accountability for your actions in your home, things would get really, really out of control. Accountability measures it's good for everyone because it helps officers to stay committed to their job and to do a good job. And it also helps the community. And that has not been in place. So again, I think we're in a moment where we have to look at the system and just make a flat out decision that what was can no longer work as we continue to progress in society.
How do you tell these new age protesters and those who see the civil rights movement, who see different marches and everything. Is marching the effective way still when, like people have seen these type of actions? Like, it just explain the effectiveness of a march today.
I think we've seen it. I know this. We just talked about the fact that Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor were killed in February and March. Nothing was happening. No one knew it was happening. And basically their families and their attorneys, Attorney Lee Merritt, Attorney Benjamin Crump, Attorney Chris Stewart, Attorney Lanita Baker, they got in touch with people like me, activists and leaders in the community, and they said, we need help amplifying these cases. Once we begin to amplify, once we begin to march, once we begin to put boots on the ground, you have things happening like today. We're hearing that in the case of Ahmaud Arbery, all the men involved in that case have been indicted on felony murder charges. When does that happen? They weren't going to do anything. They killed the man in February. They saw the tapes. And what's the meme that was out all over social media? They didn't arrest them because they saw the tapes. They arrested them because we saw the tapes. Well, the only way that they knew that we actually saw the tapes is that we had to put boots on the ground. I mean, I think that we've seen, and I don't think marching is a solution all in and of itself. I think it is a part of a larger plan. If you march and don't vote, that's a problem. So we all have to understand that we have different roles. Different people are going to do different things. Some people are going to march in the streets. Some people are going to march to the polls. Some people are going to run for office. Some people are going to fund the movement. But there is a movement in place, and every single person has to get in the game.
For Breonna, we know the murdering officer has been fired from the police force. Is today's march basically to say, you know what, we want him indicted on him and the cohorts that they indicted on murder? Is that the goal for today's march?
Absolutely. He was not alone. So just trying to fire that one officer is not enough. They used to just fire officers and think that that would be enough. It's no longer enough. The movement has said we need people to be charged, and they have to be held to the same standard that any citizen would be held to if we murder someone wrongfully. And in particular, there is one officer who lied on the documentation to get the no-knock warrant. He has been placed on administrative leave. He needs to be fired completely and charged as well, because his lie saying that the post office had reported that there was suspicious packages going to Breonna Taylor's home, and we find out now that that did not happen, and the post office is saying they never ever reported any such thing. That no-knock warrant is the reason why they went to the home. It is what caused Kenny Walker to fire one shot and then ultimately Breonna's life to be taken.
In past history, when you think of the militancy, you think of the Black Panthers and organizations like that, should we as a people, to protect ourselves, invest more into firearms and those type of things, to say, you know what, we have the same constitutional rights to defend ourselves, even as a Black man, and say, you know what, to protect our communities, our families, et cetera, is that our solution? And should we be timid about saying, you know what, we have to arm ourselves because we're under attack? We're being hunted down.
That's right. Well, I believe in the right to bear arms, but I also understand that if we are not trained properly in our communities, we will die. We will die because these people have a militia. They've been trained. They have the NRA, they have police departments, they have discipline, and they have unity on their issues. And we in our communities have to get to that point, because just having a gun does not mean that you're going to be able to protect your brother or sister or yourself. And so I do believe in the right to bear arms, but I believe more in the level of training and discipline that we have to have, so that because I believe that if we have the right discipline and we really fight in these struggles the way that we need to, we won't need guns at all. We can actually force people to be held accountable, and they won't want to kill us. But again, if you want your gun, that's fine. I just want you to have to pass a background check in order to get it.
Understood. So now we saw the situation in Georgia with the voting, and most people are saying that we're going to really show our power this November in voting. And the part of that that frustrates me is that our people think that we could get registered on October 27th. You know what I'm saying? Like this. You know, you got to start getting prepared for the election now. How much confidence do you have in the voting system in lieu of these key states that a candidate would have to win, having so many voter irregularities?
I think we have an uphill battle. Voter suppression is real. They have already started it. Charles Booker, the gentleman who's running for a senator against Mitch McConnell, and it looks like hopefully he might, actually pull it out and become the Democratic nominee. He had to file an injunction about the election because they had thousands of people lined up who were turned away and were not able to vote. And now I believe that something is going to happen where those people will be allowed to vote. So we're looking at voter suppression in Kentucky, in one district where, of course, Black and brown people live. In the name of social distancing, they closed all the polling sites and kept one open for 600,000 people. If they pull those same shenanigans as we move towards November, we're going to have some serious, serious problems. And so I'm not all of that excited about or feeling so hopeful for. And I also think that, unfortunately, the Democratic Party has done a poor job of giving us the types of candidates that we want to support. I don't feel inspired at all in this moment, but I do know that we need something different than Donald Trump. I know that. And so I know that regardless of whether or not I'm excited, whether I want to, whether or not I'm feeling good about it, we've got to go to the polls and we've got to get our people armed with the information that they need so that they can get there. And the last thing I'll say is that people should not underestimate the impact that COVID-19 has had on our communities. We know that Black folks have been disproportionately impacted in terms of the death rate. If that is the case, the fact, and it's been people who are older, people who are elderly, people who are seniors, that is the most committed voting base that we have. All of our elders, those are people who we know, the Democratic Party especially knows, that they can depend on. And right now you have those that have been, who are sick, those who have actually died, and people who are afraid to even leave their homes as we begin to see these numbers spiking again across the country.
Yeah. So Tamika, my last question, and once again, I thank you for being so generous with your time. You've been equiply, you've educated yourself. Seems like this whole activism is a calling for you, but it seems as though we put so much emphasis in celebrity, and you see it with people asking, okay, which celebrity should respond, and why hasn't this one said this, or how didn't, why is it in the basketball players and all this stuff like that? Why are we as a people so enamored with what a celebrity has to say? And I'm not disparaging their art. And maybe it takes time to do things through art, but why are we so hell bent upon celebrity pushing this movement as opposed to putting the emphasis on more people like yourselves who are uniquely qualified for this moment?
Well, first of all, I think that's a whole different show, and it'll take us 2 hours to deal with the mental psyche and media and how media portrays certain images and gives certain people and not others advantage in terms of coverage. But the way in which we operate, we believe that the celebrity plus the leader in the community and Ray and Keisha on the block, we can't forget them. They can't be a separate part of it. It can't be that we're trying to save them. They have to be a part of the mixture so that all of us can rise to the top to elevate our people. And I don't worry so much. When I was younger, I used to say, they need to say something, this artist and this entertainer. As I've gotten older, I focus on the ones that I know really want to be in the struggle, those who I feel are really trying to do the work. Shout out to my sister, Alicia Keys, and my other sister, Rhapsody, who've really been down with me, Cardi B, who's been supporting me, and I could go on with a list of folks. Those are the people.
Beyonce, who shouted you out?
Beyonce, listen. Shut it down. My sister Yandy, who's sitting on the other side of the computer over there on her phone, trying to act
Yes,
like
ma'am.
she's not in the room. I'm looking at her right now. There's a number of celebrities that do support me, and they do support us in our communities. And guess what? That's who we have to focus on. But I will say, let's not be so hard on people who feel, that they want to hear from and they expect something from these celebrities, because no one becomes an influencer without the people pushing them there. So there's an expectation that if I support you, that you will also support me.
Yeah. Well, listen, let me just affirm you by saying thank you. On behalf of, if I could speak on behalf of the however many millions of Black people in this country, thank you. And I appreciate you putting it takes a special person to put their life on the line for their people. And that's why you're going to live forever.
Thank you. Peace out.